I'm Lauren. I invited my Lebanese friend, Dr. Nabil Jabbour, to read to you passages from his book, Unshackled and Growing. Dr. Jabbour is a distinguished professor with a doctorate in Islamic studies. A PDF version of the book in its entirety in English is available to you for free on the website friendshippathways.com. You may also access past episodes there. I present to you the episode, Exercise and Parental Care.
Exercise and parental care. One time when I was a child, I was confined to a hospital bed for about 10 days. Although I had been physically fit prior to my hospital stay, afterward I could hardly get up to walk. It's amazing how fast atrophy sets in. In these coming episodes, we will look at the importance of exercising our spiritual muscles. We'll also consider the last of our spiritual essentials, the need for parental care. Exercise and movement. Exercise and movement are essential for good health and physical growth. Even after major surgeries, patients today are encouraged to get up from bed as soon as possible and start walking. Movements keeps the body functioning properly. Spiritual movement is equally important in the life of the new believer. We exercise our spiritual muscles by acknowledging Christ in a way that draws people to Him. I made this discovery as a very new follower of Christ. I was in boarding school in Lebanon, where half of my classmates were Muslims and half were nominal Christians. A couple of days after my encounter with Christ, I was praying alone in the bedroom, and while praying, I had a vague memory of a passage from the Bible that my mother read to me when I was a child. The passage was Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24, which I mentioned earlier. In that passage, Jesus told a worshipper that before he offered his sacrifice in Jerusalem, he should first go back to his hometown to ask forgiveness from a person he had offended. Right then, I remembered a classmate whom I had not talked to for 3 years. His name was Ghassan, and I couldn't even remember the reason for our conflict. Then a big struggle started in my head. I had thoroughly enjoyed my time so far with Jesus, and I wanted to maintain my relationship with Him at any cost. But when Ghassan came to mind, I lost my joy. How could I reconcile with him without any mediators? At our school, reconciliation occurred through a mutual friend who would volunteer to persuade one person to forgive the other. Then he would do the same with his other friend. Finally, with his help and the help of others, the two would meet in a neutral place to shake hands and break the ice without either one losing face. Well, it did not happen this way with Ghassan and me. On that day, I struggled with my pride for a few minutes. Finally, I knelt next to my bed and promised my Lord that I would do anything to obey Him if He would help me. I vividly remember going down to the courtyard of the school with my heart racing. Ghassan was standing with two of his friends next to a tree. When I approached him, his face turned pale. I said, Ghassan, I do not remember why we had a conflict 3 years ago. I want to apologize to you for the way I have offended you. Will you please forgive me? And I reached out to shake his hand. without saying a word, and with his face still very pale, he reached out and shook my hand. Then I told him that last Sunday I surrendered my life to Christ, and out of obedience to Christ, I needed to be reconciled with him. Then I shook his hand again and ran up the stairs to the bedroom. I knelt next to my bed and, bursting with joy, thanked Christ for giving me the courage to obey him. Within hours, the news spread among my classmates. One with the name Hassan, he came to me and wanted to know why I did what I did and whether I was a Christian or a Muslim. I told him that I was a Christian by name all my life, but since last Sunday, I had become a follower of Christ by choice. From the first week of my new life in Christ, I started exercising my spiritual muscles. It has not always been easy to do this over the years, but what an adventure it has been. John chapter 9 tells a beautiful story about a young man who was born blind but was healed by Jesus. After he was healed, people wanted to know what happened, so they came to this young man and asked him about it. He said to them, as we see in the Gospel of John chapter 9, the man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. He told a simple story of what Jesus did for him and how he was healed. The Pharisees focused on the fact that Jesus healed him on a Sabbath, rather than rejoicing with him for his healing. They interrogated the young man about what happened. He simply told them that he was blind and now he could see. The more he acknowledged Christ, the more courageous he became, until the Pharisees left him and went to intimidate his parents, as we see in the Gospel of John, chapter 9, verse 20 and 21. The parents responded fearfully, "We know he is our son, and we know he was born blind, but how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we do not know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." Unlike their son, they were afraid to acknowledge what Jesus has done. Instead, they chose the safe, easy way out to escape harassment from the Pharisees. The book of Acts records the history of the early church's amazing growth. The energized followers of Christ did not ask God for opportunities to tell people about Christ. Instead, they prayed for boldness and courage. With courage, they discovered an abundance of opportunities to acknowledge Christ. And the more they acknowledged him, the faster they grew. One year, some friends of mine in the Middle East decided to study the topic of fear in the Bible. That study did wonders in their lives. When fear is broken, God can do anything through the lives of his children.